Alright, so my hot end right now is at 220 degrees. I'm going to go to prepare, move axis, move 1 millimeter, extruder, and now I'm extruding. A couple seconds here, you should start hearing a knocking noise. I'm using an infused filament, so it has particulates in it. There you go. And pretty good jam up in my hot end here. You can see the Bowden jumping when it clicks. Okay, this is a good indication that somewhere in my hot end there is a plug. So we're going to go ahead and do a little maintenance. I need to clean my fan, as you can see here. I need to change my nozzle, and I need to find out what's going on in the hot end. So stay tuned. We're going to take a couple things apart, and we're going to rebuild and start it back up. So I've had this problem a few times before. I always have better luck cleaning it out when it is hot, but this is dangerous. It's not very safe. I mean, 220 degrees Celsius is enough to burn anybody. So this here is a piece of high temperature silicone. I will be using it to hold the hot end while I work with it because it'll keep my hands from getting burnt and it won't melt. So in some cases, it's preferable to take off the tiny side-mounted fan, and for that, you'll need your smallest Allen wrench included with the Ender 3. But from tightening and loosening that too many times, these clips are kind of weak, and they're starting to buckle from being screwed and unscrewed so many times. So I'm not going to take that off this time. I'm going to go straight to my second smallest. We're going to take off the fan housing from the front, from the hot end. And it's 2 little screws right here. Now, anytime your print just stops mid-print and then continues rising up on the Z but not laying down plastic, and quite often when you have under extrusion issues, the reason is because there's a clog in this head. Now, this PLA, like I said, is an infused PLA, and it has particulates in it. In this case, they're coffee particulates because it's a coffee-infused plastic. It's very gorgeous plastic. It comes out very nice. I will show you quickly here the problem that I was having. Sorry about that. It was under my camera mount. So, as you can see, it started to under extrude and missed a couple lines, and that's basically because the head became clogged. It continued to travel, but nothing could leave the nozzle. So, lower my Z here just a touch. Raise it up again just a bit here because I want to set the fan underneath it for now, so you can see what I'm doing. So there's the silicone sock here, and that is quite warm to the touch. What I need to do is pull my lever, give a little push, and retract my filament. And it's pulling quite hard. It's one of the ways I can tell that there's a clog in there. And I want to remove my Bowden, which is always a pain. You know, you try to seat these things as well as you can, and then when you need to do some maintenance, you have issues. Okay, I smell coffee, and as you can see, my particulates backed up all the way to there and up into the Bowden tube. So I don't normally use my wrench for this, but I want to see if we can unplug it somehow. And it becomes difficult because, there we go. Now this is most likely my problem. I know it's hard to see in the light, but look how black that looks. This filament is not black. As I showed you with the coin, it should be this brown color. So you can see that I had some burning there. That's okay. I'm kind of assuming that that's where my jam stops. Normally I have to go down into the hot end, but I am going to quickly do one more thing. This is hot, so like I said, be careful. We're going to grab clippers here. Take off the silicone sock that way. Okay. Now, what I want to do is get my smallest wrench, because this one will work the nozzle. We're going to loosen it up here. Now, the reason that I do this while it's hot is because when you're reseating the nozzle, if you have melted plastic in there, if it cools down, it will create a gap between the nozzle and the throat or the heat break. And we don't want that, because then when we do fire it up, that plastic in that gap will melt and it will ooze out of the side of the heat block. So that creates quite a mess. Happens quite often. I've seen it a lot on Facebook and Reddit, and even done it myself. So we've got our nozzle off. The nozzle is still quite hot. Clean it off a little bit and see how bad our wear is on the hole, because they don't stay at 0.4 millimeters very long. And I've even ran some nylon through here, which wears it out faster and things of that nature. So let's see if I can clear the head here even. Well, I can't fit the lead from an LED in there. That's a good thing. It's not completely worn out, but there is quite a bit of gunk in there. And it's starting to solidify because it's cooling. So I'm going to grab another nozzle real quick. If I can find them. There they are. So you can generally get a package of these are the cheap ones. You can generally get a package of 10 of these for relatively cheap. Now I could, in theory, look down the Bowden connector there and ensure that I don't have anything in the way, but I found that the Allen keys fit quite nicely, and then I don't have to finagle with it. So looks like we're clear in the hot end. I am, as you can see, getting a clear shot all the way down to the light. So we're cleared out. Don't want to leave my phone there too long. That hot end's still hot. Now the tricky part, because rescrewing in the nozzle when it's hot is kind of a chore. It's not too bad, but it's easy to burn yourself, and as soon as the nozzle heats up or it gets in contact with it, it starts heating up, and that becomes a little bit harder to deal with. So the trick is to get it in there, get it threaded a little bit, and then go right to your wrench. Now you want to make sure that you have a slight gap, about 1 millimeter, in between the nozzle and the heat block. I know about how big my gap is because I've seated this and reseated the throat a couple times as well. So we're looking pretty good. You gotta be careful when wrenching on this while it's still attached, not to pull anything loose, not to break anything off. Okay. Now we have replaced our nozzle. The other thing I wanted to do real quick is clean the fan, and to do that, it's not spinning right now, but I am going to go ahead and shut off the Ender 3. And the reason I'm shutting it off is so I don't have to worry about any electrical problems or anything like that. Now I have quite a bit of dust built up in here, so I want to do some wiping and just some general cleaning before we put the pieces back on. My silicone sock is pretty much toast. I'm going to need a new hot end altogether here pretty soon, at least the heat block. I do have another one over there. It's for a printer that I'm building, but we're not going to mess with that right now. I am going to go ahead and push that down, replace my Bowden tube. There it is. And I'm going to pause right there for just a second because I need to grab some Q-tips to clean this up. Alright, and we're back. I got my handy dandy Q-tips here. Ideally, a little touch of rubbing alcohol after you get all the dust off will clean things up very nicely. Just want to make sure that you give it a minute before you turn it back on. Rubbing alcohol evaporates really quickly, so as long as you let it evaporate before you turn it back on, you shouldn't have any issues as far as shorting anything out because you're putting liquid on it or anything like that. So the inside of my housing is really, really dirty. This is actually the first time I've cleaned the inside of the housing. I've cleaned the fan a couple times. I don't know why I accumulate so much dust at the location we're at right now, but it is what it is. Cleaning out this little fan is a little bit trickier because pieces are so stuck in there and there's so tiny spaces between the blades. But normally if you get a hold of a little chunk, you can pull out big chunks at a time. I always found it counterintuitive that the fan is where dust collects on electronics. Don't know why that is. Personally, I think it has something to do with static. But it could just be an airflow thing too. Could just be that the plastic the fans are made out of cling better to the dust. I don't know. This becomes quite tedious because I'm just cleaning the little cracks here basically. And what I'm doing is sliding my tool in there and pulling it forward and pulling it out. Then I'll give it a little spin, grab another chunk, and even this you can see I'm grabbing a lot of the dust that's down in there, but it's not cleaning the actual blades themselves. It's really just pulling the stuff from the rim. Alright, so we got most of the big chunks, so I've just grabbed a bottle of just regular cheap isopropyl alcohol. And I'm just delicately and as gently as I can giving this fan a good wipe. It is pulling quite a bit of stuff out. I'll show you in a second. You can see how much cleaner it is. As I said, you're going to want to make sure that if you're using copious amounts of this, that you're letting it dry completely before turning it back on. Now, as you can see, it's a lot less dusty. I am now going to go ahead and pull the vent fan off, and we're going to clean the inside of that real quick. Because I've taken off most of the dust, why not take off the rest? So generally, when removing all of these bolts, it's a good idea to get a little cup or dish or something to place them in to ensure that you do not lose any pieces. I'm kind of just setting mine on my desk right here, which is already a mess, so that's a bad idea, but I think we'll survive. These bottom two not only hold the fan to the housing here, they also hold the duct, this part, to the fan. So if you're doing a vent ring or something like that, you'll take out these bottom two screws and replace those after you pull the plastic bar here. So now it's kind of difficult to clean the rest of this fan unless you have access to the bottom through the vent here. So what we're going to do is just kind of run it through there. You see we're getting quite a bit more stuff off of there. Wipe out the rest of the dust in the corners. And sometimes you need a little bit finer tool to get all of it picked up here. And I know it's kind of hard to see, but there is big pieces of dust coming out of here. What I'm holding in my hand is a test circuit board that has an LED stuck through it. I'm using gotta be the anode of the LED. But a small screwdriver, some sort of little metal pick, anything like that will work just fine. Go. There's a piece back here I want to get out. And a little bit tedious, but maintaining your machine properly is a big part of increasing its longevity. You know, depending on what type of dust particles you have building up in your fan, it is possible to accumulate enough to start a small fire. So cleaning it out is advised, at least once in a while. So I think that's about as good as it's going to get. Not nearly as bad as it was. Not perfect by any means, but like I said, this is just a little continued maintenance. When you replace it, the vent goes towards the bottom and the sticker goes to the back. If you look here, that broken clip is broken on both sides. I will be printing another one of these here in the near future. At the moment, I haven't had any issues because it does still clip to it fairly well. I just have to remember which bolts go in where, because two of them are longer than the others. So little Allen wrench back out. Get lined up with the hole there. There we go. Alright, so home dogs are going to go on the bottom because they have more plastic to go through. That makes sense. Now that I'm starting to get this guy fired back up or cleaned out and I don't have any wires exposed, I'm going to turn it back on. So we're going to preheat it and extrude a little filament here in a minute to make sure that we took care of the problem. Ironically, I'm kind of happy that this jammed up because I have had to clean this a couple times and I wanted to make a video on how to do it. So now you know. Like I said, like I showed you, I didn't even have to remove the hot end from its mount. If you pull the Bowden tube, pull the nozzle while it's hot, and run some sort of pipe cleaner through there, obviously one that's not flammable, then it goes pretty smooth. So, last screw here, then we'll remount the housing. Let me get this guy up to temp real quick. So, prepare. No, we're going to go to control because I need a little higher than 185. So, temperature, nozzle. Now, this PLA that I'm using has a little bit lower temperature than their standard, their regular PLAs. It says to go to 210, and I've been printing at 220. I'm going to kick it down to 205 because there is a possibility that the heat is causing it to jam up in there. Now, make sure your fan cables are on the inside here. For this last top right bolt, you're going to want to put it on once you have it mounted because it does screw into the mount. Switch to our second biggest Allen wrench here. Line up my holes. We're at 166, going to 210, 205, excuse me. We do have the same filament in here as before. I withdrew it mostly from the tube when I was cleaning my hot end so that I wouldn't have any issues. And the other thing I want to check is the end of this. As you can see, slightly burnt and a little bit on the fat side because the pressure when it was jammed compressed it in the head of here, making it wider than our 1.75 millimeter diameter, which is not ideal for our purposes. So now, when I replace it back in there, it should slide easily into the tube. There we go, moving freely around the edge, and there it is, into the hot end. We are at temperature. You can see I extruded a little bit, so my clog is no longer there. I know it's kind of difficult to see at the moment, but there it is. So now, let's see if we got rid of our bucking problem and our under extrusion problem. So we're going back into prepare, move axis, 0.1 millimeters extruder. And we are extruding. Don't seem to be having any issues. I think our problem's all cleared up, guys. Well, there you have it. As you see, we cleaned out our hot end. We got it extruding again. We did find a slight clog. Took care of that. We also saw how to clean the fan. So that's going to be it for this episode. just a little bit on maintenance. You saw how to change your nozzle, how to clear a clog, and how to clean the fan. So if this video was helpful to you at all, hit that like button. Don't forget to hit subscribe for future videos, and definitely check me out. I'm on my other social media sites. I'm on Facebook. We have our own Facebook group. There's Twitter, Instagram. Also check out my Patreon site. All of those links are going to be on the main site of the channel in the header bar where our main graphic is. So pop over, check it out. Don't forget to leave me a comment, and thanks, guys.